Hello and welcome to Cleave to Antiquity. My name is Ben, and today I am joined by a very special guest, Seraphim Richard Rohlin. How's it going?
It's going well, Ben. It's good to be here.
Glad to have you here. Yeah, this will be an exciting one. I'd been kind of watching your videos a little bit on and off. I caught a shorts series where you were traveling and checking out some interesting cathedrals and stuff like that. How was that? It was some kind of pilgrimage.
Yeah, so this is it was a pilgrimage that I went on with my friend Father Andrew Stephen Damick and a couple other friends, Father Jacob Siemens, who has a channel called Orthodoxy in the Isles, and then also our friend Pastor Mike Landsman, who's a Protestant pastor and is the co-host of the Areopagus along with Father Andrew Stephen Damick. And so the four of us went together on a pilgrimage, basically following the path of early historic apostolic Christianity, which we would consider to be Orthodox Christianity in Scotland, kind of beginning at Whithorn, and then going up to the island of Iona, which is where St. Columba and his 12 followers came and established a monastic foundation there that then becomes basically the great missionary center for for evangelizing the tribes in what are now the Highlands and Lowlands of Scotland, those kingdoms there, and eventually that follow. And so what we did was to follow the trail over the course of a couple of centuries of the fruits of that mission from Iona down to Lindisfarne into Northumbria, Bamborough, Whitby. Of course, the Synod of Whitby is kind of the terminus for Celtic Christianity as such in the British Isles, and there's not completely so. It's a little more complex than that, but anyway, basically that was the line that we were following, and then also visited several sites associated with the Venerable Bede, who's one of my favorite saints and somebody I personally owe a great debt to as a scholar. And so we did the pilgrimage first and foremost for our own benefit, and then also we made a sort of a pilgrimage documentary similar to the one that Father Andrew and I did when we went to Lithuania a couple of years ago. However, this one is much more focused on video. So we had cameras with us, and we did a lot of recording. I want to say recorded maybe around 10 hours or so of footage, and so they've released a few shorts, but basically over the course of the next several months, that channel, which is called the Orthodox Pilgrim, which is where we'll be putting trips like this. We plan on doing, well, a lot more. But that channel will be posting kind of basically longer mini documentaries about individual locations. So
Yeah, I thought the shorts and everything turned out really well. I looked at some of the longer form videos. It looks like there was some good quality, like production quality into it. So great work. It looks
yeah,
cool.
thank you. Yeah, we had some cool little cameras and microphones and everything. That was a ton of fun. I like the gadgets, and this is the first time getting to work with some of those things. So I wish I'd known about half of what I know in retrospect about running that equipment. So next one will be even better. That's all that means.
Awesome. Yeah, it makes me want to go traveling. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you should definitely you should go on pilgrimage. You can start with going to places here in the US. We have a lot of wonderful holy sites, monasteries, and places that are associated with the relics of our saints. And so going to those places is a good place to start. Start with a pilgrimage close to home. Of course, the most important pilgrimage you make is the one that you make to church every Sunday morning. But I think that if we could get people to start replacing the idea of vacation with the idea of pilgrimage, they're not the same thing. They're not done. They're only similar in the way that like dieting and fasting are similar. They're actually done for totally different reasons, and the practical aspects of how you do it are a little bit different. But it's a wonderful thing to do to connect yourself to your history and to your faith.
Absolutely. I see we've got Justin from the Transfigured Life in the chat. Hey, how's it going, man? I didn't see you at the conference. Where were you at? I thought you were gonna swing by. And also sorry if my voice is a little jacked up. I feel like I maybe got a little scratch in the throat, but I'm good to go. I appreciate you coming on the show. I saw an interview you did with who is it, Barrel Aged Faith,
Yep.
about you used to be a Baptist. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure, yeah. So for people who don't know, my name is Deacon Seraphim Richard Rohlin. I am a deacon in the Orthodox Church in America. And I've been Orthodox for a little while. And before that, I was a Protestant pastor for about 8 years. So I was a pastor in a small Baptist denomination Southern Baptist, but not Southern Baptist. Definitely smaller than the Southern Baptist convention, and but anyway, very focused on overseas missions and things like that. So I was a pastor in that denomination for about 8 years before we came to the Orthodox Church. Yeah.
Very nice. So it kind of seems like you have a bit of a similar journey to myself, because I was a non-denominational pastor for some time before.
Yeah. Were your non-denoms, were they like big churches?
No, it was like a small, like SBC leaning church.
Okay.
So my senior pastor was ordained SBC, and it was basically all SBC theology.
Got it. Yeah. We I think at our largest, my old church maybe had 120 people on a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
So very small denomination, lots of small churches. Yeah.
Yeah, roughly about the same. Maybe anywhere from like 100 to 200 on busy days, probably about 200 something.
Yep.
So not too big. Nice, like tight knit community there. I did love the community, but Orthodoxy is true. I have to be obedient to God. You know what I mean? Interpersonal relationships are great, but God is the greatest. You can't not follow him where he wants you to go.
That's right. Yeah.
Absolutely. So for those that are unfamiliar with how these shows work, we're going to do a little bit of a Q&A. So if anybody wants to send in a question for Richard Rohlin, go ahead and send it into the chat. You could put a Q in front. I'm going to start starring these. And then if you're an inquirer or something along those lines, let me know so that way we can kind of prioritize your questions. And I'll pull them up and we'll just respond to them in the order in which they're received. Unless you send a super chat or something in, and then I'll just pull those up first. If I get too many of those, though, I'll start to prioritize the inquirers again, because they're the whole reason I do the show in the first place. So if anybody wants to send in a question, I'll go ahead and I'll start pulling those up. Looks like also do me a favor. I noticed there's a couple of people who are streaming at the same time. So if you like these types of streams, go ahead and head over to X and retweet that post saying we're live, so we can get some more people in the chat here. But I guess until then, we could talk a little bit more about what drew you into Orthodoxy.
So my background, academically speaking, is that I'm a medievalist. So I'm a Germanic philologist. I'm a medievalist. A lot of the work that I do in public is still tied to this in various ways. So, for instance, I have a show over on YouTube, here on YouTube, called The Great Tales, that I do with my friend and very frequent collaborator, Father Andrew Stephen Damick, and where we look at ancient stories and basically just read them and discuss them as Orthodox Christians. We did a similar thing for Tolkien with the Amansul podcast, and anyway, just a lot of things like that. I also do a lot of work with the Symbolic World Press, where we try to make and publish beautiful books and take medieval storytelling modes and kind of bring them forward for the modern world. So I'm a firm believer that modern problems require medieval solutions, let's say. So anyway, I say all that to say that at some point, I mean, I gave a kind of the long version of our conversion story when I was on Cassian's show, but the short version is that here I am, being a pastor and trying to figure out how to do certain things on Sunday, and things like, what are we going to do for Easter this year? And kind of don't like the hymn book that we're using, and is there a better hymn book that we could be using? And so all these things, I'm trying to reinvent the wheel on Sundays. And then during the week, I'm doing scholarship, and I'm doing studies and things like this, and coming into contact with the world of medieval Christianity, even in the West, even after the Great Schism, which is still very, very, still very deeply connected to a lot of things that, as an Orthodox Christian, I find really beautiful and important and valuable. And just sort of saying, hey, it seems like somebody kind of already figured out the answers to these questions. So then where does that leave me? And this is coupled with a period of also personal crisis. I'm actually a firm believer that nobody converts in a vacuum. Nobody converts just because they're intellectually convinced of certain things. There's always a personal aspect. There's always a personal crisis. And I mean, for instance, I think this is why we saw such a big wave of converts during COVID, because there were so many, everybody's life was already so disrupted in so many other ways that suddenly it became feasible to say, hey, I've been kind of tiptoeing around this thing for a long time. May as well just rip that Band-Aid off too, you know? So we went through a period of personal crisis, and for me, that personal crisis was deeply connected with the Eucharist and my desire to receive communion, and totally aware that we did not have the Eucharist as the true body and blood of Christ in the tradition I was in. I mean, we certainly said that we didn't, you know. So if you're going to take just like the doctrinal statement and the other confessional materials of my old denomination at face value, that was something I was going to, I would have to go the rest of my life without that. And that is one of those things. Father Georges Florovsky talked about this idea of dogmatic consciousness, this idea that sometimes God plants a little seed in you where you go your entire life knowing that something is true, even though maybe everything in your life is telling you, no, it can't possibly be true, but in your heart, you know it's true. And and the Eucharist is one of those things. I can remember sitting in the pew as a 9-year-old boy, hearing the pastor say, "This is nothing but blood, nothing but crackers and grape juice. Nothing is happening here. There's nothing real here." And just thinking, well, that just can't possibly be true. Like, and I don't actually want to live in a world where that's true.
Right.
And so, so for me, it became this really this question of like, where can I go that I can receive communion? And it was right about this time as I'm processing all of this and going through this with other pastors in my denomination, things like this, that I meet some Orthodox people for the first time, and who were themselves converts. And what they showed me with their lives, there was never any pressure, there was never any sales pitch, but what they showed me with their lives is that this is a life that I could also enter into. And that's the short version of the story. So
It sounds very similar to my own because I remember having those same thoughts. That was kind of the unraveling point for me, was really focusing on the Eucharist. And I remember I had several conversations with my senior pastor on that exact topic. And in fact, before I was ordained, one of the things that I had brought up was, I believe that we receive grace in communion. But I think the logical conclusion to that is, well, do we actually have a valid Eucharist? And if
yeah,
you have no
right,
apostolic succession, right there, it's impossible. I mean, you look at any of the church fathers' interpretations of Matthew 18:18, the keys given, Matthew 16:18 as well.
yeah,
The keys given to all of the apostles, right? You need a successor of the apostles. You have to be within the church if you want valid sacraments. So
yeah,
I can't, as much as I would try to make sure that the teaching was accurate in our church and reform where I can. You can't reform apostolic succession back into your
right.
ordination or
I mean, there's a
or
kind of
back into your church.
there's a kind of interpret oh boy, can't say that word today. There's a kind of interpretation that we would do
Yeah.
where we'd say, okay, well, anytime the tradition says bishop, that just means your local pastor, and anytime the tradition says the sacrament, well, that just means the Lord's Supper. And like, you can kind of fool yourself, but it's just very obvious that if you just look at these people, they're all funny hat wearing, censer swinging, Theotokos venerating,
Mm.
at that point it's like, well, what do you do with that? And so, for me, it was going and looking for a place where I could receive communion, where I could be under a bishop, was also very important. Of course, those things go together, as you find in the Apostolic Fathers, and just trying to find a place where I could have communion, find a place I could be under a bishop, and then also, really importantly, trying to find a place where my soul could be healed, because there was a lot of hurts that I was carrying. Some of them I didn't even know that I was carrying at the time. And it was the tradition of spiritual fatherhood in the Orthodox Church, being under two very loving, wonderful priests who really took us in and kind of put me back together, put our family back together. I mean, that's as much as why I'm Orthodox as any reasons on paper. So
Mhm. Absolutely. It looks like we have some questions here too, so
let's do it.
we can dive into that. By the way, chat, I just let me catch you up on something that I did this weekend I thought was pretty cool. So I got to attend Divine Liturgy where Metropolitan Jonah was doing the liturgy. That was amazing. That was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. And I was texting a buddy of mine, and I was like, hey, how was your day going? He's like, oh, I'm doing this, this, and this. I'm like, okay, look, my day's going way better. Okay. I just saw Metropolitan Jonah do the Divine Liturgy. Okay. There's nothing better than that. It's awesome. Got a blessing from the Metropolitan. Very cool. So yeah, I don't know. That was awesome this weekend. And the conference was very cool, getting to hang out with everybody and talk to a lot of different priests. So very, very blessed. If you want to ask about that, feel free as well. So, but I got a couple of questions in here. Keep sending them in, and we'll dive into them in the order that they're received. Question: I'm confused how salvation is a process. So talk about theosis of becoming like Christ, not a legal declaration like Protestants think, but there's still a judgment day in Orthodoxy. Can you clarify? So it sounds like he might be a little confused about theosis, maybe.
That's a really fun question. It is very hard to answer questions about Judgment Day for two reasons. One is a lot of us kind of carry this baggage around about it, but the other is that you familiar with the midwit bell curve, the midwit meme, where like at the beginning of the bell curve, there's the guy with the smushed in brain, and he's like, oh yeah, there's a judgment day and you stand before God and God judges you. And then somewhere in the middle of that curve, there's like, here's all the technical explanations and reasons why you should, like here's all the things this means, and it's like the fire and it's transfiguration, and maybe it's that river of fire homily that's sometimes attributed to Saint Isaac Syrian and all this stuff. And then down at the far other end where the saints are, it's like, yes, God judges you at the end of time, and I think at the end of the day, when we're talking about the life of the age to come, the traditional images are not just the best to use, but very often they're all that we have. So here's what I would say to answer your question. When Christ describes the Last Judgment, which this is the passage for us that would be as Orthodox Christians, this is the passage that would be normative for us to understand the Last Judgment. It's in the Gospel according to Saint Matthew. And the way that he describes the judgment is, we're standing before him and he says, what did you do when you met me? When I was hungry, did you feed me? When I was in prison, did you visit me? When I was thirsty, did you give me a drink? When I was in need, did you help me? And those who say, Lord, when did we ever see you, ... those are the people who have nothing to do with Christ. Those who recognized Christ in this life saw him first and foremost in their brothers. Those are the people who identify with Christ. And when we talk about theosis, this is one of the main things that we're talking about. If you just go back and look at the way that the church fathers talk about theosis, for instance, St. Gregory of Nyssa, when he talks about it in his homilies on the Lord's Prayer, St. Gregory says that the way to become like God, if you want to be like God, the path to deification is to forgive everyone who's hurt you, everyone who's ever wronged you, to forgive even yourself. Because the way that we become, and this is his commentary on forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors, because the way that we become the most like God is when we forgive. That's when we're truly free. That's when we're living a life that's as free from contingency as it can possibly be, which is what it's like to be God. So I say all that to say, these are different ways of talking about identifying with Christ, recognizing Christ, taking his life upon ourselves, taking his service upon ourselves. That is what the process of theosis looks like. For most of us, that's going to look like taking care of our kids, taking care of our wives and our children. It's going to look like taking care of the beggar in the street. For most people, that is how you're supposed to live out your faith. That is why Christ says in St. Luke's Gospel that if you want to be free from hypocrisy, you should give to the poor and tell no one.
That's a great way to break that down. I love that. And it gives people practical things to do as well.
Yeah.
Is the Father greater than the Son? I heard the Father is the only person that is ungenerated.
Saint Seraphim of Sarov, my patron saint, says that if you want to know about the Holy Trinity, you should go and read the Cappadocian Fathers. Nobody else is qualified to talk about it. I certainly am not. What I would say is that uh, uh, you can look at the way that the Son speaks about the Father, and this is a submission that's not by necessity. That is, it's not by nature, because Christ and the Father share the same nature. So there may be some kind of submission going on in terms of the persons. There may be some kind of submission going on in terms of the economy of salvation. But in terms of the essence, they all share one essence. That's the whole. That's the whole deal. So.
Here's an interesting question. This might be one that's a little dependent. How often do you need to confess before communion? What is the longest time you can go without confession and still commune, assuming you have all the other prerequisites for communion?
The answer to this question is that it depends on your jurisdiction, and it depends on your spiritual father and what has been prescribed for you. I am in the Orthodox Church in America, and in the OCA, the assumption is that that you are communing on a regular basis. If you miss communion for more than 3 Sundays, for instance, according to the guidelines for laity in the OCA, you would be considered kind of de facto excommunicated. And one of the things you would have to do would be to go to confession again and basically explain why you've been absenting yourself from the chalice without a blessing to do so. The expectation in the OCA is that you're communing regularly and that you're going to confession once a month. And if you need it more often, then maybe you're going more often. If your father confessor tells you come less often, then you're coming less often. But so there's a general guideline, but ultimately this is up to the person you go to for confession to determine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard it's different for each jurisdiction.
Yeah, I mean, there are historical reasons for differences in frequency, not just of confession, but also of communion. But it just really and so depending on how your jurisdiction has received some of those historical complexities will just kind of depend on that. In the OCA, there was a movement towards increasing frequency of communion for lay people, and that was also accompanied by sort of figuring out like a ratio for confession that was considered generally helpful.
This is a good follow-up question. I'll get to this and I'll go back to what I was just looking at. Oh, wow, you can be told to go less often. Maybe a good clarification.
Scrupulosity is a thing. There are some people who, obviously I'm a deacon, I don't hear confessions, but I mean, I can just tell you that scrupulosity is a thing. And if you're, one of the things that you have to sort of be able to do, like this is part of your maturing into the image and likeness of Christ, is being able to take a really honest assessment of yourself. Most of us, speaking of myself, for instance, most of us,
so most of us what?
Sorry, my wife messaged me.
No worries.
Most of us are not strict enough with ourselves, but some people are too strict with themselves, and sometimes this can come along with some kind of form of like compulsive behavior or other things like that. And so it might actually be a useful thing for some people to to go to confession a little less often. Again, it's up to your father confessor. In the Orthodox Church, we tend to just confess to one person and have that person be the person you confess to. By default, that is your parish priest, by the way. And if the idea is that it's the same person who knows you, they know your life, they know what's going on in your life, and so they also know what is useful and helpful for your salvation. So,
right, yeah, I mean, I've heard people say that has occurred. Mostly people with high anxiety or something along those lines. Maybe they have some kind of like addiction or something, and they go, I need to go confess like like all the time, back to back to back to back to back. I've seen that and heard that. Question. I'm 100% convinced of Orthodoxy coming from a high church Episcopal church. What advice do you have for a rural Alabaman that doesn't live near an Orthodox church 2 hours away?
Well, I'm very excited to find out there's a high Episcopal church in rural Alabama. That's very surprising information to me.
Yeah.
What I would say is, I mean, in general, if you're a long way away from an Orthodox church, I mean, obviously that's a difficult situation. There's some really good parishes in Alabama. So I don't know where you are in Alabama, but I guess I assume you know your geography better than I do. But the first thing to do is to really just bring this before God and ask for help. The next thing to do is to reach out to the nearest Orthodox priest, especially Osea or Antiochian parish, which are going to be which frequently start missions. If there are enough, because you might not be the only person in your area who wants an Orthodox church, and if they find out, hey, there's 3 or 4 families here, that might be enough justification to start a mission and have somebody come out once a month and do like catechesis and liturgy and things like that. So step one is pray. If this is where God wants you to be, God will reward your intent. I really believe that. And B, God will, He'll provide what's needed for you and for your salvation in the right time. And in the meantime, the second thing is, just reach out. We actually really do love, especially here in the Diocese of the South, my diocese, which includes Alabama, we love planning new missions. We do it all the time. Usually it's just a matter of there have to be some people in a place who want a church. And that's how most of our parishes got there to begin with. So you could be that guy where you live.
Yeah. And if it encourages you, I mean, I drive an hour, so that's at least half. So you could do double what I do, and then you'll be good to go.
I drive only half an hour to get to my parish, but it's through Dallas traffic. So
There
just
you
count
go.
for something.
There you
Something.
go. Yeah, well, that's probably worse than my drive. My drive is pretty traffic free for the most part. Where
Mm.
where I live, the traffic's not that crazy. Some people say it's crazy, but I used to live in Orlando, and that was insane. You can't it's bumper to bumper no matter where you go. That's one of the reasons I moved, to be honest. Even in the suburbs, you take over 30 minutes to go just, I don't know, like 20 blocks or something, like not that far. But yeah, thank you for the super chat. I'll make sure to keep you in the prayers, man. Um, I know I was talking to somebody this weekend that was talking about maybe we'll see in the near future some more Orthodox resources pop up here because somebody was talking about making a tool that would help request new missions or like collect requests and then send them off. So that would be
I'm
interesting.
working on some things like this. So yeah, stay tuned. I can't talk about some of it yet, but we have some stuff in the works for next year.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. What's the next question here? When the bread and the wine is consecrated, does it mean that we say the substance changes? Do the molecules change? How would we explain Eucharistic miracles?
So a lot of these questions, or at least the way this question is phrased, it applies more to our Latin friends than it does to me. I mean, I can explain exactly what they mean when they say the substance changes, and it's you'll find language like that used by some Orthodox church fathers and councils and things like that occasionally, but it's just not the language that we tend to focus on. Um, the 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 language here comes from Aristotelian categories, which have to do with the difference between substance and accidents. So, substance is what something is kind of in its nature, whereas accidents are the way that it appears in the world. And so that's the Latin doctrine of transubstantiation, which I don't have a problem with, by the way. It is the idea that in its nature it becomes body and blood, but in its accidents it remains bread and wine, like let's say under a microscope. Now, this is not how we tend to think about things in the Orthodox Church. What we believe and we confess is that it is truly the body and the blood of Christ, and this is you could almost say that in becoming the body and blood of Christ, which is shed for the life of the world, it's actually a revelation of what food is about, what eating is for, what bread and wine are for. Like eating is for communion. Before the fall, everything Adam and Eve eat, everything they do, is actually communion with God. And then their failure, according to Romans chapter 1, is to cease to see the world in this way, so that they cease to offer up the world as an offering of thanksgiving to God. And when they cease to do this, they create idols and they fall into idolatry. So for us, all the physicality of Orthodoxy, not just the Eucharist, but the other sacraments, the other mysteries as well, also things like icons, this is actually a way of offering up the world, even the matter of the created world. It's a way of offering it up back to God. So this is what we do. Should be remembered that, we're not doing some, and I use this term advisedly, we're not doing some sort of hocus pocus when we consecrate the Eucharist. What we're actually doing is offering something up to God. So it is an offering. We offer up bread and we offer up wine. And then we very cheekily ask God, would you take this few dollars of bread and this few dollars of wine that we're offering, and would you send down your Holy Spirit upon it to mystically transform it into the most precious thing in the entire cosmos, which is the body and blood of your Son. And so we offer something, and then he gives us something back, which is much more precious than anything that we have to bring to the table. That's what's going on in the Eucharist. It can never be, I think, separated from the sacrificial dimension, from the liturgical and ritual dimension. We don't like, in Orthodoxy, we don't like to, take the consecrated Eucharist and put it in a little monstrance and parade around town with it and things like this. That's super weird to us, actually, because it's this is the consummation of the marriage, right? This is the marriage supper of the Lamb. Like it's all these things. And I think sometimes when you focus too much on the technical aspects, then you lose these dimensions, like which I think is where the life really is. So as far as Eucharistic miracles go, what I will tell you is that they do sometimes happen. However, in our service books, we have little instructions for what to do if one happens, because we don't actually look at them as being good things in the Orthodox Church. If there is a Eucharistic miracle, it is a sign, possibly that God is judging you, that he's judging your lack of faith. He's judging your, what St. John Chrysostom says is that the Eucharist appears to us as bread and wine, basically as a condescension to our frailty. So to really be shown, like to have the veil pulled back and to be really shown what it is not a good sign usually. And so there's actually very specific instructions about what the priest is supposed to do, what the deacon's supposed to do if one of these miracles is to occur, or he looks down in the cup and he suddenly sees like a little infant child in the cup instead of the bread, and so on. So there actually are very specific instructions for how to handle this. Generally speaking, it's not a good thing, and you kind of have to set that aside, start over again, and call the bishop when it's done. Basically, that's what we do. So.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. It's like the exact opposite of the Roman Catholic view of the Eucharistic miracles. They use it as like a proof. It's like, for us, I guess, more of like it's like your lack of faith.
Yeah, and I don't like picking on Catholics about these things. I mean, obviously, we're much closer to them than we are to Protestants. But I think there's a very different kind of an attitude. And if we wanted to get into it, we could talk about the historical path that those attitudes have taken. But anyway.
Christian Mario, good to see you. Loving the stream. It's good to see you at the conference, man. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, there was a lot of people there. It was nice. I kind of wish my wife had come, because I had a bunch of people at the conference were walking up and they were like, "Hey, you're cleaved to antiquity. I know you. You're from the internet." And then I could have convinced my wife I was actually famous, just to only take her out to places where I know people will recognize me. That'd be interesting. But I was joking about that. That was a good time. All right. Do either of you have experience with atheism? Yes. I am logically convinced God exists. Christ is God, and Orthodoxy is the church of the first 1,000 years. But I struggle with heartfelt belief. Any advice?
Start doing things with your body, and your heart will follow. I mean, that's really it. Like, the thing is that different people are wired differently. A lot of people have really emotional experiences that they then kind of mistake for like deep belief. And basically the test of that is always just, how does it hold up to the dry spells? How does it hold up to persecution, and so on? Other people are just wired not to have these kind of big emotional experiences. It doesn't actually mean there's anything defective about your faith. You might just have a different personality. Ultimately, the thing that you are seeking is a deep encounter with Christ, a deep encounter with God that goes beyond your emotions, that goes beyond your intellect, all these different things. But the way to get there, I mean, that's the top of the mountain. Sometimes we get these little revelations when we're lower down, but those are like that's just God sort of wooing us. And the thing is, if you're intellectually convinced of something, God is already wooing you in a certain way. So just start living your life as though it's true. That's what I would dare you to do.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. I've in the past, I used to run a mentorship program. We would talk to atheists, Muslim converts, other people, but the atheists were they were a little more difficult, I think, to get past that piece you're talking there, because there's kind of like an emotional attachment to just absolute skepticism. It's almost like a comfort blanket for people. But once you kind of dive in and you're just like you said, ingratiating yourself in the life of the church, so on and so forth. That does change, and that was something that a lot of the priests that have come on the show have said in the past, is that one of the best things to do in situations like that is, like, I mean, that's the entire reason we do not the entire reason, but that's part of the reason why we do morning and evening prayers before the icons, right? It's to kind of shift your focus and make it more um it's building that pattern. What did your father Stephen DeYoung said on the show? He said there were three things that shape, gosh, I'm going to butcher what he said. I can't even remember it now. Anyway, he said something very profound. Trust me. Go back and watch that, see what he said. It was something along the lines of what you do as a habit will shape the way that you view the world and ultimately how you feel about it. And there were three things that he had mentioned. Go back and watch that live stream and check that out. That might be helpful for you in your specific situation. All right, let's look at this question here. 2 hours from Birmingham, there is a
Oh, this is
mission
a follow
church.
up to the earlier question. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a mission church nearer, but with a high church background, I find it difficult to go to a church in a strip mall. Is remote catechesis a thing? Monthly church attendance? Question mark.
Earl Grey 4896 sounds like I hate to tell you this, but sounds like a great opportunity to humble yourself. We have lots of great parishes in our diocese, in the Diocese of the South. Beautiful cathedrals, beautiful churches. Most of them started in metal buildings. They started in Callaway's nurseries. They started in gas stations. They started in warehouses. Strip mall is actually like pretty high class compared to some of the places that we've started missions. Point is, eventually these places grow, and you're able to build something and actually kind of be a part of that process of building. And maybe you're the person that they need there to help those things happen. So I would say actually start out by going to the strip mall. Like it's going to be good for you. And the amazing thing is, I think what you're going to find is that the Orthodox liturgy scales in such a beautiful way that even when it's done in a strip mall, I still would rather be a part of, a strip mall liturgy with three bad singers than the best and biggest service in some other tradition. I don't know. I just find it really beautiful, and have been involved in helping out at many strip mall parishes and missions myself. And I find there's a really beautiful, wonderful kind of energy there. Orthodoxy is not high church. It's not. That high church, low church distinction is actually particularly to Anglicanism, and it has to do with historical developments within the Anglican tradition. But Orthodoxy doesn't have a high church, low church. There aren't different settings in Orthodoxy. In Orthodoxy, Orthodoxy is just maximalist. So that means you just always scale up to whatever you have. And if you've got three priests, then you have three priests serving. If you have one priest, then you have one priest serving. If you have a strip mall, use a strip mall. If you have a cathedral, you do everything you can to use that space. But Orthodoxy is about just make it as beautiful, as great as it can be to the glory of God. So maybe that's something to try. Remote catechesis, not ideal. Monthly church attendance, yeah, maybe you can go to the strip mall 3 weeks and then go to the church in Birmingham once a month or something like that. I don't know. You got to talk to somebody about this. But the thing is that Orthodoxy is not a series of propositions that you're going to receive. It's a life, and you just can't get that remotely.
I'll share this. the service that I went to um, with Metropolitan Jonah was in a smaller church just like that. And I've been to services, divine liturgies in big cathedrals. I've been to them in local parishes. I've been to them in multiple different settings. But that service in that small church that, I mean, you might think is a little unassuming, was probably one of the most beautiful divine liturgies I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
So, and also the priest, the parish priest there, absolutely amazing. Almost makes me want to move. But I love my priest too. But it was such an amazing experience. I was just like, wow. So you might be surprised. Go and check it out. And sometimes the smaller churches have super tight knit communities, but are like really welcoming. You might be able to like make some really good friendships, some lifelong friendships at those types of churches. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't wave it off maybe because the building is unassuming or something. You know, it still has the mysteries, right? Like
Yeah.
what more could you really want?
That's right.
All right. Let's see. Just I wanted to give that little bit of encouragement there. Um, Question. I've been reading a collection of letters and homilies from St. Ephraim of Arizona. I understand monks need to detach to focus on spiritual life, but is there a danger of falling into Gnostic ideas?
Oh boy. Well, whenever somebody brings up Gnosticism, I don't know what they mean, and they may not know what they mean. So what I would say, I mean, if you just mean like, is it possible to reject the world too much? Is it possible to reject like the normal parts of family life and like kind of common human goods too much? Sure, sure it is. What you're called to do as a monk is different from what you're called to do as a married person. And so a lot of spiritual material that is written by and for monastics is dangerous to apply to your life as a layperson unless you either have the discernment to know how to apply it or you have somebody in your life who can kind of help guide you in that respect. It's not to say there's anything wrong with reading Father Ephraim. It's not to say there's anything wrong with reading other monastic literature, but generally speaking, what I tell inquirers, I mean, I'm a catechist at my cathedral, so that's my main focus is helping people become Orthodox and stay Orthodox. And when I tell my inquirers, when they ask like, what should they be reading? I say, well, you should read the four Gospels and you should read the text of the Divine Liturgy and talk to me again after baptism. So.
Mhm. Worldwide asks a question. Recent Protestant in process of conversion. Hey, praise God. Now understanding Jesus wasn't damned on the cross, but was rather deifying humanity to be able to step into heaven. Can you expand on this subject? Protestant view leads to Nestorianism. I guess he's saying if the Father
Yeah.
damned the Son on the cross.
Right. So the focus, and here's what I would say. Anytime people want to talk about the atonement, there's currently like there's a handful, a smattering of people over on Twitter who have decided it's fashionable to try to retool certain Calvinist theories of the atonement for Orthodoxy. I mean, there's nothing new. People try this every so often. I don't really care, and the reason I don't really care is because it's not normative for the church. So what do I mean by this? Everything that the church needs to say, everything the church focuses on about in regards to the crucifixion and what is happening at the crucifixion is covered in our exhaustive services of Holy Week. Exhaustive and exhausting, actually. It's like 60 hours if you did everything. The services in the Holy Week, and even in a parish where we don't do quite everything, it's still, those of us who are in the clergy are at the church many, 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 many hours a day. We're doing lots and lots of services, lots and lots of long, beautiful services. I'm not complaining. It's what I'm here for. But throughout all of those services, whenever the crucifixion is not talked about in the sense of the Father punishing the Son. Not a single time. I've read through the texts lots and lots of times. It's always talked about in the sense of why is God dying? Why is the Son dying? The Son is dying so that he can enter the realm of the dead, because the way that you get into the realm of the dead is by dying, so that he can defeat death, so that he can defeat the devil, and so that he can bring out mankind with him, so he can bring out Adam with him. This is a way of talking about bringing out our nature, so that our nature is no longer subject to death and corruption, and we are able to then also look forward to the resurrection of the dead. So Christ's death on the cross is a necessary part of the path that he chose to effect his victory over sin and death and the devil. And that's really it. I mean, you could say, you could certainly find people who speculate in, even Orthodox church fathers who speculate about it in other language. But as far as the thing that the church focuses on, I mean, we have an entire week plus every Saturday and Sunday of the year to focus on the crucifixion. So if this idea of like the Father just punishing the Son, if that was part of our focus, or even a main focus, like, wouldn't we spend some time on it? But that's not where the services of the church are focused. So to me, as a, you can stay, it's safest to just kind of like live the life, have the orthodoxy of the services and the Holy Fathers who put those services together, and the Holy Fathers who preserved and passed those services down. The focus is on Christ's victory. It's on his rescue operation. It's on his military conquest of sin, death, and the devil. And that's probably where we should also be focused most of the time.
He sent a follow-up. He says, if Jesus was defying human nature, how did Elijah and Moses make it to heaven? Did all in OT go to Hades? Confused. This new outlook makes more sense, though, because I am not Nestorian that Jesus was damned beliefs.
Okay. There's a few different kind of layers to this. I think he's asking if Jesus was deifying human nature. How did Elijah and Moses make it up to heaven?
Yeah.
There's no problem here. The reason that it's always been possible for humanity to participate in the grace of God, because that's the thing we're made for. And the image is bent, it's twisted with sin in the fall, but it's not damaged beyond recognition. And so what that means is that there are people in the Old Testament who do, in fact, it's always like a little remnant, but there are people who do cooperate with the grace of God. And ultimately, Christ's resurrection, the harrowing of hell, this is an event that spans across time. Now, as far as Enoch and Elijah, these are special cases. These are special cases in which they are taken up into heaven. According to tradition, they are still going to come. They're going to return at some point and then die and be martyred. And then they will also participate in the resurrection of the dead. So they don't like avoid the "it is appointed unto man wants to die" kind of a situation, which does apply to everybody. So, the thing is, when you start talking about some of these questions, you start getting into this question of time, and is there time in the age to come, and how does God experience time, and all these things. And a lot of that stuff is just not knowable. Time is not what we think it is, and it's not going to be around forever. So
we'll find out when we get there.
Yeah, we'll find out when we get there. Yeah, but did everybody in the Old Testament go to Hades? The tradition is that the Old Testament righteous went to Abraham's bosom, which at the time was a holding place in Sheol or in Hades, where the righteous went, and that Christ when he goes into Hades, those are the people that he takes with him during the harrowing of hell. Those are the people he takes with him into paradise. So lots of icons depicting this.
Here you go. Question. I've noticed ecclesial anxiety as a huge topic of conversation among our Protestant friends online. This is supposedly due to Orthodox quote-unquote exclusivity claims. Is it our fault or it's our fault? LOL. Thoughts?
Alex, I don't know if I know what you mean by ecclesial anxiety. Do you,
I can explain. So
yeah, please.
This was a term coined by, well, as far as I'm aware, was coined by my friend Gavin Ortland. And basically it's that the exclusivity claims give the Protestants anxiety because they feel, or some particular Protestants anxiety because they feel that, well, if the church is exclusive and then there's no salvation outside of the church normatively, then it's like bullying people into like the theology itself would be bullying people into joining the church kind of deal. It's more like about the feeling it causes. I don't know.
Oh boy. Okay, so here's the thing. I was a Baptist. I know how evangelism works. You go up to a Roman Catholic who's having a perfectly nice day in the park. I know because we did this. And you say, if you were to die today,
Yeah.
and God says, why should I let you into my heaven? What would you say? And then this person who was having a perfectly nice day and was not at all expecting to be attacked in this way says, oh, I don't know. You know, I try to be a pretty good person. And you say, aha, but have you ever lied even once? Yes. Then you're a liar. Have you ever stolen something, even a paperclip from work? Yes. Then you're a thief. And have you ever looked at a woman to lust after? Yes. Then you're an adulterer. So you're a lying, thieving adulterer. Do you think God is really going to let you into heaven? Well, I guess when you put it that way, no, I don't suppose so. So great. Now here's what you need to do to be saved. You need to say this prayer, repeat after me, and then you need to join my church. So like, if you're part of a church that doesn't believe that it's the path to salvation and doesn't believe that this is where Christ is, what are you doing? Like all the most sincere Protestants that I know believe that to be saved, you have to believe Protestant things and do Protestant things. So like, what's the like? I just don't get this, man. It's like, yes, of course, Orthodoxy has a self-understanding that this is the church. This is the church. And you know, we don't have to like club people over the head with that, but like we sure as heck don't, you know, shouldn't also, you know, say that we claim it's any other thing. Yeah, this is the church. And yes, if you want to be saved and you want to come into a relationship with Christ, if you want to become like him, the best thing you can do is to repent and be baptized, believe the gospel, become an Orthodox Christian. Absolutely. I believe that. I don't know, the idea that Orthodoxy is somehow special in making this claim and no Protestant groups make this claim is historically very disingenuous. And when I say that, I mean that even 40 years ago, most Protestant groups believed that other Protestant groups were not Christians.
Right.
I mean, the Baptists that I grew up with would excommunicate you for like going dancing with the Methodists, and that's a real thing that happened, by the way, in my church growing up. Like the Baptists I grew up with were like, I don't know, maybe some Methodists go to heaven, you know, this idea that all the Protestant groups are just kind of lovey-dovey and it's all just kind of like, oh, we all just have kind of different spins on the same thing, and you just find the place that, yeah, it's like that now, but that's only like 20 years old, man. Like it has not been like that in the Protestant world, historically speaking. Go back a few hundred years and these groups are literally killing each other, you know.
Right.
So this idea that Orthodoxy is kind of special in exclusivity claim, I mean, even the practice of open communion, which is basically common among most Protestant groups now, is just only a few decades old. If we go back even to the 1950s, if you are at a Lutheran church, you can only take communion if you're Lutheran. If you're at a Baptist church, if you're at one of the Baptist churches even 30 years ago that I grew up in, if you can only take communion, not just if you're a Baptist, but if you're a member of that particular, you know, First Baptist Church, whatever. So they had really, really closed communion. So anyway, all that to say, lots of churches make exclusivity claims. My question would be, if your church doesn't make an exclusivity claim, then like, why not? What's going on?
Right.
What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the things that honestly convinced me was studying the ecumenical councils, right? And then you see there's these things called anathemas attached to some of these canons here. So if you're saying, well, I mean, if you were to take that and you were to expand out and look at like every Protestant denomination, they all make exceptions for the other groups, right? Or for certain other groups, just like you were saying. Even the Anglicans, who say that they hold to the ecumenical councils, at least the first 6, they would claim. Some will say the 7th with like an asterisk on it.
Yeah.
But even if you were to look at that, I mean, they hold the branch theory, so they really don't hold to these ecumenical councils.
Yeah.
They don't apply the anathema. So it's a concession that they're not the same church as the church of the first 1,000 years.
There's a funny story about when, as part of the ecumenical movement in the 1970s, the Lutherans and the Orthodox got together, and of course, it's been like a long time since anybody from Greece has, seen a Lutheran, heard of one, talked to one, probably. And so they're sitting down and they're just trying to basically figure out, okay, it's been a while. What's happened on your side of the fence, since the splits? So they start talking, and the Lutherans are thinking, okay, we're going to talk about all the big issues, and the Orthodox sat down on the table and said, all right, let's start with the canons of the Council of Nicaea. How are you applying canon number 3 right now? How are you applying canon number 4 right now? And the difference is that the Orthodox Church had this idea of still being self-consciously the same church that held that council and that wrote those canons. And the Lutherans were like, oh, that for the Lutherans, and I don't have any beef with Lutherans, but for the Lutherans, there was, that's something that happened a long time ago to other people. And for the Orthodox who were sitting at the table, they're saying this is still the community that we're a part of. So, yeah.
All right, there you go. Thanks for that. Now just pray that we can win over my wife. By the way, congrats, Cleve. Hey, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. The wife. That seems like everybody that chats in is like, I'm having an issue winning over my wife or something like that. So absolutely.
Just be patient, be loving, show the transformation that happens in your life when you begin saying your prayers and trying to live to the best of your ability as an Orthodox Christian in the context that you've been given. And then eventually, hopefully you've got a good, loving relationship with your wife. She'll see what's going on. And the thing is that they start later, but they go faster. My wife is a much better Christian than I am. So.
Yeah, one thing that helped me was introducing my wife to people at the church so she could see herself integrating into the community. So if you've already like gone, or you're going to like a Vesper service or something, get to know a couple people. I wouldn't recommend going to like a different church than your wife. So that's why I say the Vesper service. Go and like get to know some people, especially if they, they're married. Then that way, your wife can make a friend, and then she can see herself moving into that type of community. Because otherwise, it's just like, oh, well, I'm going to leave all my friends and go somewhere I don't know anybody. Like, this stinks. Women are very social. So you got to give them kind of a little bit of an off-ramp. All right, let's see. Where am I at here? Answer that one. Here you go. For the sushi buffet, or budget. Thank you so much, Oct. Good to see you, man. With the big super chat. I gotta get the soundboard thing like Christian Mario has. He's like a little drum roll every time somebody sends it a super chat. He always like cuts off the guest with it too. It's like it's hilarious. Hey, good to see you. I saw you at the conference as well. Let's help our brother out and give him a like on stream. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Yeah, if y'all want to go ahead and like the stream, share it on X. It helps get more people in the lobby here, so we can get some more questions in. I keep screaming begum at my wife, and it's just not working. What do I do?
Probably don't do that. Probably not that.
I mean, that's what the guys on Twitter told me to do. It has to work, They're the wisest people I know. That's hilarious. All right, let's take a look at the questions. I'm gonna start going back up to the top here. Another one from Alex. Do you have any particular go-to fasting food?
Well, this time of year, there's a lot of fish days. I eat a lot of tinned sardines. I mean, other than that, my wife is a really good cook. I don't know. I just eat whatever she cooks. And then if otherwise, just try to lots of rice. I don't know. Like, to me, like part of the point of fasting, like it's hard until you've been Orthodox for a while and you just kind of like go into fasting mode and don't overthink it. But early on, it's just really, really hard. And I get that. That's why I always actually advise that people kind of use each fast, because we have 4 a year. So you can use each fast to like kind of level up your game just a little bit more and a little bit more. But ultimately, the place that you want to get to is where you're not thinking about the food. I mean, this is really the issue, is that we spend so much of our life just concerned with pleasing our bellies and pleasing our taste buds, and it's so easy now. Like there are heights of cortisol saturation that you can get from a bag of Doritos that used to require like, you had to be at least like a minor noble to even taste things that tasted like that. So we have the first thing you do. I mean, my advice is always to inquirers is, in my parish, inquirers are absolutely forbidden from even trying to fast. So what I tell them during the fast is take this as a time to simplify your life, simplify your food, stop eating out, cook at home, eat natural, just eat whole foods, eat real food, get off of junk food, get off of weed, get off of, all these things. And then later, after you become a catechumen, then we start eliminating kind of one ingredient at a time. And this is something that we work on. So anyway, the whole point though is just to just not focus on your food so much. So fortunately, like I said, my wife is a great cook and she makes really good things. I also love cooking, but all of my cooking is done on the grill, so not so much in fasting seasons, obviously. But yeah, I just don't overthink it. If you ever find yourself like reading labels on the backs of things, like you've gone too far, stop, turn around. You're gonna get lost, and the worst thing that can happen is like you crash out and then like find yourself, Holy Wednesday eating a cheeseburger in your car, like hunched over like an animal, because you don't want your fellow parishioners to see. That's what we want to avoid.
Dang, you mean I gotta stop? I gotta stop reading all the bags for oil or whatever.
Yeah, I mean the oil thing is a weird, it's kind of a weird one in the sense that the original idea there was probably not so much was there any kind of oil used as an ingredient. It's more like in the way that it's still in the Mediterranean today, people dip everything in oil like it's a condiment. That's kind of
Right.
the idea, right? So yeah, if and certainly the rule is if you're out somewhere, you eat what's set before you and you thank God for it. And most of us probably, before we even eliminate ingredients, we have to start learning portion control. So even starting by trying to eat a smaller portion or not go back for seconds, those are the kinds of places that you actually probably need to start. So anyway, I know that wasn't your whole question, Alex. Go-to fasting food. I mean, again, I don't know. Like I said, this time of year, a lot of tinned fish. Otherwise, I'm a pretty simple man. Rice and beans.
Go super hardcore, just salt cubes. That's it. Salt licks. That's all you can have.
Yeah,
No,
just
I'm
all
just
this. Yeah,
kidding.
yeah.
Do like a futuristic nutrient cube. That's no, I'm just kidding. Also there you go. Also, my family and I are getting chrismated on December 14th. Please pray for us. Any tips for acquiring the Orthodox mind as someone who has grown up in the West?
The most important thing you can do is to actually, here's what you do. Here's what I would tell a new person who's just about to be chrismated is look up Father Tom Hopko's 55 Maxims for Life. Print it out, hang it by your bathroom mirror. And every week, try to implement one of those things. Just one of them. And other than that, go to services, say your prayers, have a hobby. It's really important that you don't make the church your hobby. The church is a lot more than a hobby. And the problem is that some of us who really like theology and we like history and we're nerds and all these different things, we start to make the church our hobby. And then we get a little too interested in church politics, or we get a little too interested in arguing with people online or whatever. Like, just don't make the church your hobby. This is something just be a normal member of your parish and show up, throw the biggest party you possibly can on every great feast of the church. Invite your friends, invite your non-Orthodox friends. Feasting is the heart of our faith. You are what you eat. You are what you celebrate. So those are the things that I would say. There's like obviously tons of good stuff to read and amazing prayer books, and the liturgy itself is the best formation you're going to get. But if I were to give you things to do outside of those, I would say print out those 55 maxims, try to implement one a week and throw the biggest party you can on every feast day.
Here's a good question. How to deal with anxiety, stress, or despair?
There's no easy answer to this question because anxiety, stress, and despair can have many causes. Some of them are caused by our life circumstances, some of them are chemical, some of them are demonic, and the truth is, most of them are some mix of the three. The thing you have to absolutely know and absolutely believe is true is that God loves you, is that Christ loves you, is that the saints love you, the Mother of God loves you, so the church loves you, and that everything the church does is for you and it's for your salvation. If you want to say, yeah, man, life is really hard, the world is really awful, it's really hard being, a man, it's hard being a young person, it's hard being a millennial, it's hard being, whatever in the society we live in, I'm right there with you. It is really hard.
Mhm.
But the thing to do is to ask God to transform your sorrow into joy, to ask him to show you how the circumstances of your life are actually exactly the things that you need to become a saint. Beyond this, take a walk, put away your phone, maybe get rid of your phone. There are a lot of things that we're doing that just contribute to bad mental health. That
Yeah.
if we ate a little better, if we had a little more exercise, if we got rid of being, the constant stimulation, if we got rid of these things, I'm not saying it's going to go away, but at least you're kind of evening the table. I mean, this is the thing. It's like anxiety, depression, and despair right now have a home court advantage, right? So you can at least take the game off their turf.
Right.
I think that's important.
One thing that really helps, this is kind of like a little bit my background. My senior pastor had a doctorate in psychology, and we would always talk to people, and you always give me the same advice. And this would help some people if they're super addicted to their phones. Stay away from the reels. Stop watching shorts. Super simple practical advice. Stop watching shorts. It jacks up your dopamine
Oh man,
levels.
the things
It's
that they're
horrible.
now, like the studies they're now doing on people who just watch short-term video content is like, it's terrifying. It's
Yeah,
terrifying.
it's awful. I'll draw a helpful illustration for some of you just to show how bad this stuff is. So stop watching everyone's shorts except for mine. No, I'm just kidding. So, but this is what it does. If you spend a lot of time watching shorts, let's say like, okay, we'll use like a scale of 100 or something. Let's say your normal dopamine threshold for you to feel happy would be like a 20. Prior to just naturally, it would be like a 20 or so. If you're scrolling and you're watching through shorts, you're raising your dopamine level in spikes. So let's say like you hit a 30 in like another minute, you hit another 30. Sooner or later, your dopamine threshold's going to move up to that 30. And the things that fall below that aren't going to start making you, stimulated or happy in the same way that they would have in the past. So your brain will require more and more and more stimulation, and then that makes life feel a lot more gray. So what you can do to combat that is to stop watching the shorts, focus on, like, if you're going to watch content online, focus on long form content, stay away from stuff that gives you instant gratification, because the way that we were designed was, back in the day, we would go out, we would hunt a deer or something. Let's say I'm like stalking a deer with a spear or something out in the woods. It's a slow release of dopamine, and then one big release when I finally catch the deer, because I'm like, yes, I did all this hard work. I've caught the deer or whatever, but now it's not like that. Now it's, I'm catching a deer every minute, boop, boop,
Yeah.
boop, 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 and then my threshold's higher. And what you'll notice is the more and more you do this, the harder it is for you to focus on stuff like reading. So if you notice you have a hard time paying attention when you're reading books, it's because your dopamine threshold is so high that you're just almost completely unable to pay attention to something that is more of like a slow release dopamine situation there. So I don't know, maybe that's helpful for some people here. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely tons of good research, tons of good science out there. You can look to, and sometimes that helps people to be like, oh, wait a minute, medical science actually says this is bad for me, and that's the thing they need to push kind of them over. But I think most of us just know it's bad.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, you just go just become an old-fashioned human. That's all you got to do. Like, go to long services, read books. If you can't read more than a page a day, just read a page a day. No big deal. Just but you can, the brain is very malleable, and you can level up your one of my favorite talks about this was made back in the early days of social media, way before Twitter, way before Reels, way before any of these things. But a good friend of mine who gave a talk at, I want to say, Harvard or Yale, and he gave it about basically how to level your brain up. And basically what he said is, like, you need to find something to read that is a little bit above your current reading level. Not so much that you can't get through it at all, but something that's just a little hard. So you actually have to strain, so you have to focus, so that you feel kind of mentally fatigued when you get to the end of it. So find something to read that's at that level, and then push through it until it becomes easy. And you can think of it just like weight training, and then go from there to something else. And ultimately, we should be really worried about our attention span as Christians, because prayer itself is nothing but an act of attention. So if you are losing your ability to give attention to good things, to normal things, then how are you going to give your attention to God?
Yep, absolutely. Read Dostoevsky and try to keep all the names straight.
Yeah. Yep.
That was right. That was stretching my brain out when I was reading.
Right. Yeah.
I think it was Brothers Karamazov and Crime and Punishment. I think both do the same thing with they have like two names for the same people. I'm like, wait.
Sometimes it's 3 or 4 names for the same people, and it's just like, there's your name, there's your patronymic, or matronymic, there's your nickname, there's maybe more than one nickname.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I started Googling. I'm like, something's off. I feel like I was like, did I just zone out, or am I, because sometimes when you read, you're like, wait a minute, I zoned out like the last 2 pages. I got to go back.
Yeah.
Like, no, it just changed his name like randomly. But anyway, good question here. I've heard Anglicans. Oh, I've had Anglicans argue with me that evangelicals aren't quote unquote true Protestants. Whoa. And leaving Protestantism because of the evangelical theology is dishonest. How would you combat this claim? Yeah, go ahead.
So I've also had Anglicans tell me that they're not Protestant. So I don't know what's going on over there. But what I would say is, it seems to be the argument that if to try to like read a little context into what Samurai Phoenix is asking, previously unsaid sentences in the history of the world. It seems to be that you're saying that you've talked to people, like you are evangelical, or maybe somebody who's evangelical, and then they become Orthodox because they say, yeah, I don't think Protestantism is the way. And Anglicans are saying, oh no, those aren't the real Protestants. We're the real Protestants, and look, we actually have all those things you're looking for. That probably seems to be it. I mean, I would just no shit. I hate to be mean to Anglicans, because they already know. But like, the answer to that question is just like, look at the current state of the Anglican Communion, and say, like, I would just look at the current state of the Anglican Communion, and there's a female Archbishop of Canterbury now. Like, there's obviously something has gone wrong. The lex orandi that this tradition maintained was not sufficient to keep it in line with the lex credendi of the ancient church. I mean, that seems very obvious to me. So if somebody says evangelicals aren't real Protestants, so you're dishonest for leaving, like, I mean, whatever. It's I've been told also that Anglicans aren't Protestants, so arguments against Protestants don't apply to Anglicans. At the end of the day, none of them are Orthodox. None of them are Orthodox. At the end of the day, the things that brought me to the Orthodox Church are not there in their wholeness, in their fullness. And so that, to me, that's what's important. And I'll let them argue about the labels, who's Reformed, who's Protestant, who's actually evangelical, all these things. Nobody actually seems to agree about those things. So to me, it's just semantics. That's all it is.
Well, what it is if they like you, then you're whatever label they are. If they don't like you,
Right. That's
then
right. Yeah.
then you're not whatever
Yeah.
label they are.
Yeah.
Well,
Because
that's kind of
there are Anglicans who say, well, we're not Protestants, we're Catholics, we're just not Roman. You know.
yeah.
So,
There
I
was a
mean,
meme I saw
yeah.
on X. It was like, can somebody decipher this Twitter bio? And it was like Orthodox Catholic, true
Yeah.
Presbyterian, evangelical, something. It's just like,
Yeah.
you just add qualifiers to it. But there was I'll get to the next chat in just a moment. But there was when I had announced my intention to become Orthodox, a lot of the same people who had me on their show that were like, oh, this, up and coming, or like one of the best Protestant apologists, yada yada, were commenting later. They're like, oh, but he was never Protestant. I'm like, I can go back and look at when I was
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
show. You're calling me, no
Yeah. I
no
mean,
disrespect to anybody, but I
yeah.
just think that's kind of funny.
Yeah. I think we're probably, the thing is that when you start talking about things in these terms, it's just you're not getting anywhere. So if
Right.
I'm talking to an Anglican who oddly enough, I have had a couple of Anglicans who tried to argue me very stridently out of being Orthodox and wanted me to become Anglican, which is very weird. It's never happened to me before, and then in the last year has happened twice. And but in both cases, I was like, okay, fine. You can use whatever labels you want to, or not use whatever. Like at the end of the day, the things that I'm looking for are not present in the Anglican communion in their fullness. And many of the things that I would have totally rejected as an evangelical and still totally reject as an Orthodox Christian are present and thriving within the Anglican tradition. So to me, it's whatever it is that we're doing when we're arguing about these labels. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter to me. I want to be a part of the Orthodox Church.
Yep, absolutely. Green says the brothers Karamazov made me a Christian. Hey, praise God.
Many such cases.
Yeah, for real. I mean, to be honest, I think maybe a month before the conversion announcement, I was, or maybe a little longer than that, I had finished Crime and Punishment. Way before that, I had finished Brothers Karamazov. So Dostoevsky, I think, really, it's not really a theological text at all, but like it has those Orthodox themes in there that really stick out in your head,
Yeah.
like the Inquisitor speech, that huge, very epic.
And then the answer to the Inquisitor's speech, which is
Yes.
the life of the elder Zosima.
Mhm. And when they were bickering over his body's corruption, that stuck with me too.
Yeah.
It's just like the hints of the presuppositions that go into the writing are fascinating.
Yeah.
That
And of
was
course,
the part I enjoyed.
the vision of the wedding at Cana. That's the amazing passage in the whole thing. So
Excellent books. If y'all have not read Brothers Karamazov, definitely pick it up. And Crime and Punishment, I enjoyed as well. Somebody was asking which is easier to read. I would say Crime and Punishment's easier to read.
it's definitely easier to read. I don't know that it's a easier book, but it's definitely easier to read. Yeah.
Yeah. Cleave into Antiquity. It's called. We do a little Cleave into Antiquity. Thanks. Thanks, cool dude. Good
Got
to
to be
see you,
some
man.
kind of a pop culture reference, which I don't get.
That's true. Well, the channel's called Cleave to Antiquity, so we do a little cleaving around here. That's what we do.
There you go. There you go.
We're cleaving it up. I was thinking about the other day, when I meet people that know me from online, they call me Cleve, and I like that. That's become so natural. I respond to that as if it's my name. I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, it's like a second unofficial name. Very interesting.
It's funny.
All right, let's see. All right. Question: how would you rebut filioque if you only had 30 seconds in an elevator with a Latin? I don't know if that's enough time.
I would just say that it seems like the current pope is not too keen on the filioque either. So you guys sort that out and let us know what you come to.
Yeah.
Yep.
I I heard Leo left it out of his most recent letter. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, and it was a letter that was focused on. It's a letter that was focused on the Nicaea and on reunion with the Orthodox, but also, I mean, you can go back to Benedict XVI, who writes all kinds of things about how maybe the implementation of the filioque or the dogmatic insistence upon it may have been wrong. I mean, it seems like you guys are still working that out. So what I would say is here's what I would say. 30-second pitch. This is the creed that the fathers of the first two ecumenical councils decided upon, and this is what they said seemed good to the Holy Spirit and to them. And we haven't changed it since. So, and it actually seems like the current Pope is fine with the fact that we haven't changed it. So, we can talk about I do believe it's a triadological heresy. We can talk about all the details of that. But if you're asking for my 30-second pitch, I would just say this is the faith that we received from the apostles, and I don't see a need to change it. So.
Right. I am
Yeah.
fully in support of Roman Catholics removing the filioques from them. I'm in complete support. If that's the direction you guys want to go, absolutely do it.
Yeah.
Let's see. Question. Why do Protestants say that Catholics aren't Christian? Well, not all Protestants say that, but
most of them do, or at least most of the ones I grew up with did. So what they mean by that is that to them the idea of salvation by faith alone, through grace alone, soli fide, soli gratia, that is when it gets right down to it, for an evangelical, for a Baptist, at least the kind of Baptist that I was, that's the thing that defines whether or not you are a real Christian. So what they would say is, well, since Catholics believe that they're saved by works, they're not real Christians. And then they would say, now there probably are some Catholics who will be in heaven, but it's like a little bit of an olive branch, just to say, yeah, I've known a couple of Catholics who really seemed like they were Christians. So maybe a couple of them will be in heaven but if they're saved, it'll be because they were saved for some other reason than being Roman Catholic.
yeah.
Yeah.
Only the ones that aren't mean to me online or something.
Yeah.
It does kind of seem like that a little bit, as far as we're talking about the no true Scotsman Protestant fallacy that they commit.
Yeah.
Isn't it? It's kind of the same idea, right? It's just like the ones that I like, I would say maybe are real Christians, but then the ones I don't like, probably aren't.
Yeah, it's hard. I try not to talk about Protestants in general, because it's just too big of a thing. And it's much more, to me, like, go back to the filioque thing for a second. To me, I'm much more interested with like what is actually done on the ground, than I am with like whatever things that people are arguing about in an ivory tower. So for me, the thing that's important about that's why I said the place I would start with is, it seems like the Pope, who is the head of your church, seems fine with me not saying the filioque in the creed. So do we have an issue here? If not, great. I'm going to keep doing my thing, and you guys let me know when you sort that out. To me, at the end of the day, a lot of this stuff just comes to like, how is stuff really done on the ground? It's fine to say you believe Roman Catholics are Christians or aren't Christians, but at the end of the day, it's like, well, how do we treat each other? How do we, what are the limits of our abilities to work together, to worship together, things like that? To me, that stuff is all way more important than the labels you put on it. So,
to what degree would you recommend Dr. Michael Heiser's work?
I have no beef with Heiser. I'm also not just a huge fan. Like, I feel kind of indifferent. I was never a big Heiser guy in my Protestant days. I did read a couple of his books that I thought were pretty good. Heiser has a huge blind spot when it comes to certain aspects of apostolic Christianity. His podcast episode on the Gebirah, the Queen Mother, is a good example of this. He goes through all of this stuff, and it gets to the end, and he's like, "Oh, and this doesn't actually have anything to do with Mary, because it's only the mother of the king of the Davidic line, and it's got nothing to do with her." And I'm like, "Well, but Jesus, but." So anyway, I think he had some blind spots, but everybody that I know who knew him, and I know several people who knew him personally, thought he was a good man. And as far as to what degree would I recommend it, I would always just tell people, go check out Father Stephen DeYoung's work instead, because it's got the rest of the picture.
Yeah, I loved having Father Stephen DeYoung on. Very, very wise, very intelligent. It was almost like each of the questions that he had answered on here were something you could probably make its own clip on because he answered it very succinctly. You know what I mean? Very, very grateful to have him as a resource. Let's see. And I'm grateful that you came on too. This has been awesome so far.
happy to do it.
Question. Did Seraphim take the St. Stephen's program in order to become a deacon?
No, I'm in the Orthodox Church in America, the OCA, and the OCA Diocese of the South has its own diaconate program, which I did for about 2 years. It was really, really excellent. So
I have a question. So I've seen some deacons be called Father Deacon. Is
Yeah.
there what's up with that?
in the Orthodox Church, especially in the Slavic tradition, which is the tradition that that's our patrimony in the OCA, deacons are very often referred to as Father Deacon or just Father.
Interesting.
What I was always told was, don't tell anyone to call you Father. If somebody wants to call you Father because they feel like that's the relationship, then it's blessed. But in any case, that is normal in our tradition, especially in more traditional Russian circles. Deacons are usually just called Father.
Interesting.
At least the
Yeah,
more
that's good
traditional
to know.
Russians I've been around. Can't speak for all Russians, but
I'll tell you all a funny story because you know a lot of this is very new to me. So I went and met Father Peter Hears, and I didn't know how to greet the priest because it's a little different. So I didn't know you're supposed to do the right hand over the left, ask for the blessing, so on and so forth. So I go to I go to shake his hand, and I stick my hand out like this. He grabs my hand and like then my elbow, and it kind of ends up becoming like a dap. I'm sitting there like, did I just dap up Father Peter Hears? I'm sitting there like having an existential crisis for like 5 minutes. I thought that was pretty funny. Kind of comical blunder on my part. But anyway, all right. And then I see Metropolitan Jonah walking into the building, and I'm just like, okay, I'm going to the wall. Like I don't know how to address him at all. Like I'm terrified. I'm like, I'm going to the wall. Like I just messed that up. I'm not messing this up too.
Metropolitans are your beatitude.
Yeah.
Or Vladika is just a good. It's just a good term. General Vladika, which means master.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Oh, Father Deacon's here. Father Deacon Ananias. You don't get a blessing from a priest when the bishop is there.
That's right.
Very nice. All right, let's see. But yeah, that was a great conference. Here you go. Question. Inquirer, at what point in the journey should you talk to a local priest about becoming a catechumen? I'm sure it depends, but generally speaking, what should one consider?
I can speak to the practice at my parish. What we do is when someone has been seriously inquiring for a few weeks, usually 2 or 3 months, very often they will approach us and just say, hey, what's the next step? And whenever somebody asks that question and they've been seriously coming, like I've been seeing them every Sunday, I've been seeing them at maybe some Wednesday night vespers. And, when I see that somebody's been seriously attending, they're sticking around for coffee hour, they're chatting with people, they're starting to make friends, and then they say, hey, what's the next step? That's when we start having that conversation. I very often liken, it's not original to me, I very often liken the inquiry period to like it's dating. Like you're going out for coffee, you're going to see a movie, you're trying to figure out where do we want to go. When you become a catechumen, you were essentially engaged to the church. You're essentially betrothed, and the marriage may not be consummated yet, but there is a connection there. And so what I would generally say is you should talk about the local priest about becoming a catechumen when you're really serious. And you can also it's really important that you see that this is a life which you can take on yourself. So
here's an interesting question here. KR asks, Sorry, I've had this question a while and nowhere to ask it. I've heard prominent public fathers disagree. Why isn't there American Orthodoxy? Should there be? And what would it take? So, should there be like one jurisdiction? I guess is the question.
Well, I was like, there is American Orthodoxy. Like, you're talking to one. Like, most of the people in this chat are Americans who
Right.
are Orthodox or interested in Orthodoxy. Like, there is Orthodoxy in America. Like, now, if you're asking why is there not a single American Orthodox jurisdiction, um, I mean, the answer to that is the history of the last 100 years. The answer to that is the Bolshevik Revolution. The answer to that is a ton of different things. Should there be? Obviously, yes, like canonically speaking, although I don't actually, it's not actually clear to me if we should have a single, see, I'm a deacon, so these things are really way above my pay grade, but a bigger question to me is whether there's such a thing as an American national identity or what maybe there's something more like regional identities. But that's a different question. Should there be? Yes. What would it take? Probably a couple hundred more years. So yeah, that's it.
Yep. Interesting. I feel like I get that same question on every live stream. So,
Yeah, I mean, the just according to the Holy Canons, the situation that we have in the United States is obviously not ideal. In the way that it affects like our lives, on a regular basis, there are some ways it's a huge problem, and other ways it's actually kind of maybe a good thing right now. So it's just the best thing to do is wherever you are, be faithful, be obedient to your bishop, and pray that God continues to move the church in America towards greater unity, and so that we can more effectively carry out the Great Commission. So.
inquirer question. Good to see you, Compendium. How are toll houses different than purgatory?
They're not even a little bit the same. So, the teaching of purgatory in the Middle Ages. If anybody wants like the big details about this, I did a video with Jonathan Pajot a little while ago, like a year and a half ago, maybe, on his channel about purgatory. Also, we did a whole course on Dante's Purgatorio, which you can get at symbolicworld.com/courses. So one of the things that we do in those videos and in that course is to talk a lot about the history of the teaching of purgatory in the West, which is very different than the way it's taught today by the Roman Catholic Church. Admittedly so. Like I would not assume that any Roman Catholic living today believes in a medieval version of purgatory. I'd be actually really surprised to meet somebody who did. Medieval purgatory is basically the upper echelon of hell, and it's real bad. It's real bad. When you're in purgatory, you are tortured. There's a lot of meat hooks in particular in the medieval descriptions of purgatory. There's a lot of fire. There's a lot of meat hooks. It is horrifying torment. And this is the way that it was talked about. And people will make an argument to say something like, okay, well, those were just like popular beliefs, and the official dogma was never that there was literal fire and whatever. Again, the thing I really care about is what's the situation on the ground, which is certainly what somebody like St. Mark of Ephesus was responding to. The toll houses come from this ancient belief that you find within ancient Judaism, that you find within all forms of ancient Christianity, that after death, the soul undergoes a period of testing. I think that the toll houses are one way in our tradition of articulating that period of testing. But the question is very simple. It's, when you die, how much of your soul, like right now, there's some part of my soul, which is, unfortunately, a lot of my soul, which is really attached to the things of this earth. And the separation of my soul from my body is actually not going to change that. So then there comes this period of testing to say, where do you really belong? And that's what the toll houses are about. And of course, the thing that we are hoping for is for the grace of God, for the intervention of our guardian angels and of the saints and of the Mother of God, to help us in whatever way you want to understand or articulate that kind of testing. Toll houses is what St. Mark talks about. But in whatever way you want to articulate that time of testing, the thing that we're hoping for is for the grace of God, the intercession of the saints, and the prayers of the church to help us through that period. Because I don't actually trust in my own works. I don't actually trust in my own righteousness. So yeah, very, very different, just a very different kind of two totally different things. The idea behind purgatory originally was there's temporal punishment which is associated with certain sins, and that punishment still has to basically, God has to get all that punishment out of you, or whoever is extracting that punishment, you have to experience the temporal punishment still, so you can finish being purged, and then you can go to heaven. Originally, what the thing Dante does, where he makes purgatory this actually relatively nice place where people are only a little bit hooked with meat hooks, but as this third place on its own, this is actually kind of an innovation in terms of medieval depictions, poetic depictions of purgatory. So yeah, they're pretty different.
Yeah, but if I don't picture it like Dante's writings, then it can't be based, you know.
Well, let me say, I think Dante's Purgatorio is wonderful. Not as a dogmatic expression of what happens to the soul after death, but it's an amazing way to think about the process of sanctification, what it means to be freed from the passions, to embrace the virtues. It's very helpful for that kind of thing. And the thing is, like, that's what also Dante is using it for. At no point in the Divine Comedy, in fact, you get to the end of the comedy, which I'm teaching through right now, Dante will say, like, don't think it's really like this. Like, this is poetic language, but Dante is not saying hell is exactly like this, purgatory is exactly like this, heaven is exactly like this.
Yeah. As opposed to Pilgrim's Progress, it says this is exactly what toll houses are like. No, I'm just kidding. He does not say that. I've heard Craig Truglia say in a previous show with me, he said you can kind of picture toll houses like that as an allegory, but I just thought that'd be funny. This is exactly what it's like. Yeah. I love Pilgrim's Progress, by the way. That's an excellent work.
You're talking about John Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress? Progress? Yeah, I'm actually not a fan at all, but we can talk about
really.
Yeah.
Really? Why is that?
I mean, Bunyan's a Calvinist. It's a Calvinist story. It's a Calvinist allegory. I just don't super care for it. I would rather listen. I'd rather Dante any day of the week than Milton or Bunyan. Yep.
Got it.
Yeah.
So
I'd rather hang out with a 13th century Roman Catholic from Florence than with a Puritan from the English Civil War. So what
you're saying is for Christmas,
the parties would be better. The parties would be better. I could have, like, Dante and I, we could open a bottle of wine. We could talk about poetry. We could talk about love. We could talk about God, and we'd have a great time. I wouldn't be able to do any of those things with Milton or Bunyan. So,
oh man. So I gotta send you the Puritan set for Christmas. Then is what you're saying?
Yeah. Well, oh boy, yeah. I'm trying really to restrain myself. I'm trying really to restrain my antipathy towards Calvinism here, but
there you go. That's funny. So that'll be the next live stream we do together, talking about Calvinism for 2 hours. Put you in the hot seat.
If it's predestined to happen, it will.
There you go. Wonderful. Yeah. The Mamba says, I've been enjoying the Great Tales podcast.
Thank you very much. So have I. It's one of my favorite things that I get to do.
All right. Let's see. All right. So we're coming a little close here. About 20 or so minutes left in the stream as we go about 2 hours. So I'm going to start prioritizing the Inquirer questions. Anybody who's an Inquirer, make sure you put Inquirer in the question. A lot of you have done that, so thank you so much. And then if anyone wants to skip in line, send in a super chat and we'll address those. But I'm going to start focusing on the Inquirer ones here. So I'm going to skip around a little bit for the last 20 minutes since we're getting a little closer to the end here. Here's one question. He kind of qualifies. Quasi-Inquirer, he says. How do the Orthodox serve and evangelize people not intellectual and into theology and liturgy? At times, it seems inaccessible to simple lost folk who just need to find Christ.
So first of all, liturgy is for everybody. It's literally a way of worshiping in a culture where most people are illiterate. The Protestant sit down and hear a TED talk followed, following a concert kind of a thing, actually requires way more being intellectual. The hyper intellectual stuff basically mostly exists on the internet. If you come to church, you're going to find it's very different. Most of the people who come as inquirers to my parish, we have about almost 70 people in my inquirers class right now. Many of them, many of them are not intellectuals. They are blue collar workers. They're plumbers. They're electricians. They're engineers. But they're not like people who are super into theology. They're there because they come and they have a genuine encounter with Christ. How do we evangelize these people? You're describing the majority of Orthodox people across time. This is a faith that has to work for a 16th century peasant. So, understand that and here I'm including myself, I'm not picking on anybody other than Deacon Seraphim. We make it way harder on ourselves sometimes than it really needs to be. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think I think the fact that a lot of it is explained in the liturgy itself helps a lot too. There's not a lot of you had kind of answered it. You were like everything that's super important is right there. So yeah, don't let the online stuff intimidate you if that's where you're at, or if you have people that you would like to invite, and that's where they're at.
Yep.
Let's see. Great question, by the way.
Yeah. That's a good
Let's
question.
see. Any other inquire ones? Here you go. This one's kind of a fun question. I'll get to this real quick. Question to Cleve. What's with you not liking, this is a running theme. What's with you not liking the canon argument against Protestants? Are you going to talk to Jay about it? Talk to Jay about it. I don't know if I'll talk to Jay about it. Maybe. I might at some point talk to him about it. I don't know
what's the background to this question.
So the canon conundrum is how do you know if you're a Protestant, how do you know what books belong in your Bible?
Yeah.
I don't think it's a good high level question. I think it's a good maybe introductory question. But if you're going to talk to, say, like a Lutheran or an Anglican, they can offer some counter arguments that might not necessarily make the argument the best one to use. I think there are better ones, like the epistemology question would be better. I actually talked about this. This is the way I'll answer it. I had Father Stephen DeYoung on the show, and he agreed with me. So there you go. Appeal to authority, and I'll bypass your question.
Yeah, I only really talk about that when somebody's like, well, why do you have all these extra books in your Bible? Whenever somebody asks that question, I'm like, okay, you've just made a really interesting statement, which is this idea that there's a list of things that should and shouldn't be in the Bible. So how do you know? And usually they'll go to Jerome, and I'll be like, all right, well done. You've now made an appeal to tradition. You've made an appeal to holy tradition, and that's actually now we have some common ground. So let's talk about that, and let's talk about what Jerome actually said and what he actually ended up doing. So, yeah.
Question, inquirer here. Best way to start delving into the church fathers. There's so much out there.
My recommendation is to read the Apostolic Fathers. You can just find lots of collections. I really love the Apostolic Fathers and the early apologists. They make an amazing case for Christianity. They make an amazing case for the ancient apostolic faith, which I think is what Orthodoxy is the continuation of. Other than that, I'm big on the Cappadocian Fathers, St. Gregory the theologians and St. Basil the Great and St. Gregory of Nyssa. I really think that for me, if you wanted to zoom in and say, well, hey, Deacon Seraphim, why'd you become Orthodox instead of Roman Catholic or something like that? At the end of the day, the Cappadocian Fathers are a big part of the answer to that question for me. However, they're not always the most accessible. So the thing that I would recommend is to start with the homilies, maybe some of the festal orations and the homilies of St. Gregory the theologian. He's really my guy. And I love his homily on baptism, because I always ask the catechumens, all right, how many baptisms are there? And they'll all be like, they got the creed in mind, which is good for them. there's one baptism. I'm like, no, there's four. St. Gregory says there's four baptisms. So what are the four baptisms? Anyway, it's a beautiful festival oration. So maybe start there. In general, if you're as an inquirer, I would say begin with reading homilies. Homilies are things that were meant for you. Now, obviously, they're preached to a group of people who probably have a different and probably better understanding of theology than you do. Just the average, barber in Constantinople probably knows more about Trinitarian theology than most pastors today. That's St. Gregor the theologian always complained about, the barbers trying to talk to him about the Trinity. But anyway, so what I would say is start with homilies. Homilies are for lay people. They're for our benefit. They're for our instruction. And then when you get in, you can get into some of the more erudite or difficult things maybe later on. But start with homilies. That's what I was. By the way, that everything that I've said to you, I'm trying my best, and any faults are mine. And any benefit comes from my spiritual fathers, because this is where they started me, was with homilies. So yeah. Father Andrew says How to Read the Holy Fathers by Father Joseph Lucas is an excellent introduction to the fathers. Absolutely. Father Joseph Lucas, wonderful friend of mine, good priest in my diocese, has written a wonderful book about this subject. So
awesome. Thank you for the recommendation.
Yeah.
And good to see you as well.
Yeah. Hey, Father Andrew.
Maggie asks, this is the first half of her question. She's got two parts here. Good evening. I'm marrying a cradle Orthodox soon, and I am an inquiring Orthodox, Lutheran to agnostic to Presbyterian to charismatic. My theological base is stronger than his, and we are hoping to have children as soon as possible. My concern is I will influence them with a more Protestant understanding of Christianity, and I don't want to. What can I do?
I don't know, Maggie. I don't feel very worried about you. Like, if you're worried about this, probably just trust God, trust the services, the prayers of the church to do their work. Trust your husband as the spiritual head of your home. Trust God's work in your life as he's bringing you to the church. I don't know, parenting is terrifying. I have 6 kids, and I'm conscious every day of all the things I'm getting wrong. At some point, when we have children, one of the things that we do in the Orthodox Church is that on the 40th day after their birth, we bring them to the church for the churching prayers, which include prayers for the mother, and then also prayers for the child. And the very last part of the churching prayers is to take that child, as you're quoting, as the priest is quoting the prayer of Saint Simeon the God Receiver, to take that child and to lay them on the ambo before the altar of God. And it's an offering up of your child to God, and just sort of saying, and the first time we did this in my family was with my son George, and who's 8 now, and I can remember his churching, and his being, the priest taking him up and laying him before the altar, and it's hard to talk about this without tearing up. But just this sense that, there's always going to be something about this person that's out of my hands.
Mm-hmm.
And because he belongs to Christ. And there is a holy place in the heart of your children, which you cannot enter into. So learning to respect that, learning to lead them to Christ. Obviously, you absolutely have to be sure about what the truth is. You have to sometimes bring the hammer down as a parent, all those things. But ultimately, you got to trust God with your children's lives, and just know that, things are going to get out of your control, and it's not going to go the way it's not always going to go the way that you want it to. But life is long, and God gives us so many opportunities to repent. So don't be fearful. This is my biggest advice to parents, would just be new parents. It's just don't make decisions out of fear. So. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I actually got to witness a churching ceremony. It was very beautiful. Yeah. Great advice there. And God bless you. Thank you for asking that question, Maggie.
Yeah. God bless you on your journey.
Inquire. This is a good question here. How did the church come to its understanding of what happens if someone passes while still a catechumen?
Um, what is I'm not sure what you mean. Like, what happens when you die? I mean, it's the same for everyone. Like, like what's the question? Is like, how do we know what happens to people after they die, or is the question, why do we give catechumens Orthodox funerals? Like, what do you think the question is here?
How did the church come? Maybe how did they? I think it is an interesting. It's worded very interesting. The way that I understood it when I first was looking at it was, how did this kind of idea, or how did the practice of giving catechumens Orthodox funerals take place? But I think there is maybe a presupposition that they're thinking catechumens go to heaven or something.
Yeah,
Which
so what it is that if somebody is a catechumen, they've already expressed a desire to be united with Christ. This is part of, in our tradition, the prayers that we do as part of the process of making somebody a catechumen, is we ask them the question, have you united yourself to Christ? Have you united yourself to Christ? Have you united yourself to Christ? Worship him as your king and your God. So if somebody becomes a catechumen, they've already expressed this desire to be united to Christ. And if they die before that happens, then the church takes that desire and does for them all the things that it would do out of the church's love, because the church is your mother. The church does for you as a mother all the things that she would do for any one of her children, even though you had not been fully brought into the church. And of course, there were many saints, many martyrs who died as catechumens. And when I say died as catechumens, I mean in the loosest sense. Like, literally, you've just finished executing a Christian, and then you're like, huh, I think I'm going to be a Christian now. And you pass the sword off to the guy next to you, say, you better cut off my head too, because I think I'm a Christian now. And so they cut off that guy and would say, yeah, that guy's a saint. He was baptized in his own blood. That's like, that guy's not even, he's nothing. He's not a catechumen. He's not anything, but he identified with Christ, and he said, I would rather be dead with Christ than alive with anybody else. And so anyway, with a catechumen, we do all the things. Like, we do not believe with an absolute certainty that when a catechumen dies that they go to heaven or something like that. Orthodoxy is not about going to heaven when you die. It's about the resurrection. But we do hope and pray that that person's soul is hid in Christ, that they're with the righteous, and we will do everything that we can do as a church to ask that God fulfill that request. So,
absolutely excellent. Joseph asks, catechumen in the OCA, Deacon Seraphim, thank you. How do you approach teaching about the Theotokos during catechism, especially for former Protestants who have difficulty grasping who she is? This comes up a lot. I feel like a lot of Protestants have issues with the Mariology.
of course, yeah, I think it's the number one thing.
Mhm.
I talk about her so much that it would be difficult for me to say like what my single approach is. Typically speaking, what I do is whenever it's a Sunday, because we do catechesis year round at my parish, 50 weeks a year. So what I typically do is if it's a Sunday that falls near or on one of the feasts of the Mother of God, one of the great feasts of the Mother of God, then I teach her life through the lens of that feast. And we look at the prayers, we look at the hymns for that feast as being the supreme expression of the way that the church knows and talks about her. The thing I'm always trying to emphasize for my students, for my catechumens and my inquirers, is that we are not aiming to come to some kind of knowledge or historical knowledge about somebody who died a long time ago. We are talking about somebody who is the most active member of our church. She's the most active member of our community today, the most active one. So you're talking about somebody in the room. You're talking about somebody who is a part of our life together. And I can talk about the ways that she has intervened in my life, some of them miraculous. I can talk about the things that she's done over the course of the history of the church. We can talk about the Council of Ephesus and the issues that were at play in taking this title of Theotokos, which the church was already using, and basically enshrining it through that council. We can talk about the various icons of the Mother of God and what they show us about her and her relationship to us and to her son. We can look at the prayers in the prayer book. We can do all these things. And over the course of a year, we do all of these things. But ultimately, the thing that you need to come to terms with as an inquirer, as a catechumen, as a new Orthodox Christian, is that you are joining a community. You are joining a kingdom. Kingdoms have kings, they also have queens. In this case, our queen is his mother. Kingdoms also have generals. Ours are named Michael and Gabriel. Kingdoms also have great men. They have administrators. They have warriors. They have soldiers. They have it all. And you are being enlisted into that army. You are joining that kingdom. I know my place in that kingdom because deacon means a waiter. So I'm a waiter. That's my job. That's where I fit in. But you are joining a kingdom, which is the kingdom of God, but that everything that's there, it's not like the kingdoms of this world where people pull from the people below them to enrich themselves and to make themselves more wealthy. It's Saint Sophroni's inverted pyramid, where instead the people who are at the top are looking for ways to confer love and life and identity and grace on those who are below. So everything the church is doing, it is for you. You're not the main character, but also everything the church is doing, it's for you. It's for you. It's for your salvation. It's for your communion. There's a lot of ways to talk about this. But what I always tell my people is that the gospel is a song the church sings, and it takes us a whole year to sing it. And that is why we have a church calendar. And that's why in my parish, because we have the resources to do this, I understand not everybody does, but that's why in my parish we teach catechesis all year around.
I'll answer this, and then we'll get one more question before we wrap up here. Templar, this is a Anglican gentleman or ex-Anglican that is now a catechumen in the Orthodox Church. He's been following my channel for quite some time, so good to see you. Have you thought about doing a live conversation with Redeemed Zoomer? He's been on one regarding Orthodoxy since you converted, or I guess we're in the process of. Same here. He jumps on me in every live stream he does. Well, I'm not doing any kind of debate at all. The way that I'm doing the channel now is I just invite in qualified Orthodox speakers to do the teaching for me. I'm taking a step back from any kind of teaching role. It's not my place. So maybe if I had somebody that he'd be comfortable speaking with, and then maybe, just me as somebody that he knows, it's a friend, if he had questions about Orthodoxy. But I don't know, making a like spectacle about it probably would not be best. If Richard ever wants to talk to me about Orthodoxy, he can call me, and we'll talk about it. But I'm not super interested in doing some kind of like live stream spectacle with any of my former Protestant friends. It's not going to work, because the way that this stuff typically goes, especially in like debates, have their uses, but the use of that and the purpose of that is not to convince the person you're speaking to, it's to convince the audience. So if I wanted to convince Richard about Orthodoxy, it's not going to be through debating him. If he ever feels comfortable enough to reach out and have a conversation, you guys will never know about it. So sorry to my audience. But that's just the truth. And I love Richard. I really hope he does, come to the Orthodox Church. All right, let's find a good last question here. And again, thank you so much for coming on. For those that are watching, speaking about debates and stuff, I'm going to be going on Christian Mario's channel right after this, and we're going to watch one and kind of just hang out and do a chill stream and kind of critique some of the stuff there. So that might be a little fun. So if you want to join me once this stream wraps up, I'll be over there hanging out with Mario. It's not going to be educational, more just like a chill kind of hangout thing. But let's see. Here's an interesting one. Inquirer, what should our cultural response be to the rise of Islam in our nations?
Cultural is doing a lot of heavy lifting in this question. So without knowing the person who's asking the question, it's hard to know, what do they mean? Like, what should our political response be? What should our, like, I mean, I would say two things. One is learn Arabic. It'll make evangelism easier. And the other thing I would say is keeping a faithful Christian, make beautiful things. I mean, there's absolutely no reason to be, I mean, it's not good. Yeah, I'm not saying it's good, but as an Orthodox Christian, I don't feel threatened by this. because we have everything. We have the faith. Like if somebody if there's persecution, like bring it on, man. This is the Church of the Martyrs. If there's um I'm just not I'm just as far as like how should we be addressing things politically or civilly, those are interesting questions. They're not questions I'm really qualified to answer, but as far as just how do we respond to these things, I mean, why is Islam growing? Well, one of the reasons it's growing is because people are duped into it, because it seems to have a very strong sense of itself, and it seems to have kind of like hard answers to hard questions. And Christianity is never going to be able to. One of the things that's a defining feature of Islam, or at least the sort of the meme version of Islam that you usually encounter online these days, is that is a total obliteration of mystery, right? So that's the thing that they feel like Islam can answer, is like this total certainty about everything. And whenever I meet somebody who is trying to come to Orthodoxy or Catholicism because they think they're going to find some total certainty about everything, I'm always a little worried about that person, because a lot of those people end up moving on to Islam. But the thing that we're offering is life. It's the life in Christ. And we can do this. Orthodoxy has a lot of reps doing it as a minority religion. We have a lot of history and insight in how uh-oh, demons attacking the microphone.
Yeah, I think you're a little staticky. Somebody said the orbs are attacking. This is Mr. Shimon. Summon the orbs. No, you're quiet now. I can't hear you.
Me too. Okay, 1 second. All right, can you hear me all right now?
Yeah, I can hear you good.
Okay, all right. Sorry about that. I talk with my hands, and sometimes I bump the mic, and I think the port at the back is just like a little sensitive. So no orbs, no demons, just these hands. All right, so anyway, all that to say, I'm not afraid. We don't have to be afraid. We have the life, we have the truth. The thing that we need to do to be focused on is when people, it's funny because people are so terrified of like, what if Sharia law gets implemented in some place or other? And I'm like, well, you guys, that would be pretty base though, right? Like, it's like, I'm not saying I want it. I'm not saying it's good, but if people are moving to Islam, it is because it's because the cultural rot is getting to them, like they're feeling it, and Christians are not actually doing a good job of offering real life while also bearing an uncompromising witness to Christ. So this is the thing you need to do. So to me, cultural, back to that word, is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that question. Culture, from cultus, from veneration, from worship, right? So the thing we should do is we've got to build a lot more churches. So you need to be going to church. You should be tithing. You should think about supporting somebody who is going to go to seminary and become a priest, because we need it's all hands on deck right now in this moment. So
yeah, I feel like a lot of Islam's growth isn't necessarily from like conversion. It's mostly birth rate, right? I
honestly I don't know. Islam in the US is weird. Islam in the US is actually not doing great in terms of birth rate. Basically nobody is, except for the Mormons, which is a different discussion. So anyway, I'm just responding to like the theme of like people like converting online. You're starting to get some of those people, and there's starting to be a clash there. And yeah, some people are are talking about, should we be letting Muslims dominate us in our countries? Yeah, all of that is I'm not saying that we should. But I am saying that if we've found ourselves in a situation where that's happening, we need to have a long look at ourselves and remember our first love. So I got absolutely no interest in preserving some kind of secularized West over against Islam. Like that's like, I'm not on either of those teams. So
right. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining. This has been awesome. Loved having you on. some excellent answers to some of these questions. A lot of really interesting questions this stream, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure.
There
For
were
sure.
a ton of inquirers, so that's very encouraging. If y'all have follow-up questions or something, my email is in my bio. I can connect you to a priest, or I don't know if you have any kind of email. If there's something specific for you, would you care if I forwarded something to you?
You're welcome to do so, but my remit to teach is really to the people that are in my community, and the work that I do it's kind of related to that. So depending on the question, I may punt it to somebody who's
There you go.
actually able to be in their life. I mean, this is the thing, is that a lot of this stuff is really pastoral. That's why I keep saying it depends, or I'll tell you what we
Right.
do in my parish. So anyway, like I said, faults are my own. If there's anything in here that's been useful, give glory to God. And I'm excited to see your path to the church, Ben. And I would just encourage you to try to stay humble. It's so hard when we're when you're doing the online thing and then you convert. Well, then like that has to be a part of your thing, but you're actually also not qualified to to do it. And so I think the approach you've been taking has been good overall. And I would just encourage you to stay in the faith and keep close to God and keep in your prayers. So
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely pray for me for sure. Where can they find you? What would you like to plug? Anything coming
yeah,
up?
I would love to plug the Orthodox Pilgrim, which is a cool show, a cool channel that we recently started, where we will be showcasing some of these pilgrimages that we go on, and basically trying to help people connect with their past as Orthodox Christians. Also, the Great Tales podcast here on YouTube, which is just talking about the great literature, the great ancient stories of the world through the lens of the Orthodox faith. And then also I'm on the Symbolic World podcast, which maybe some people will be familiar with, but if you're not, you can check that out as well. So I've always avoided just having my own channel, but those are the three places where you can follow my work. So
Awesome. So go follow all of those places and check out his work, and give him some support. Again, thank you so much for coming on the show. Let me just let you guys know what's coming up next. So on the 28th will be the next show. It'll be Father Sebastian, who was recently on Roots of Faith. He did an interview there, and he'll be here to talk about some of his experience from Protestantism coming into Orthodoxy, so on and so forth. And we'll do a little Q&A there as well. Then the following week is going to be absolutely packed with live streams because I will be out of town the 8th through the 12th. So that entire week, there will not be a live stream, guys. I'll be out of town. It's the first time I've ever taken a week off from this. I'm going on a cruise, so I absolutely can't stream there. So December 2nd, I'll have Father Paul Trubebach on the show to do a Q&A. So if you want to,
I appreciate you saying that, because I need to just make a little update to my notes. That's my daily Father Trubbenbach reference. Every day in my life, somebody somewhere mentions his name, so I'm just gonna note that
that's
down.
awesome.
Yeah,
That's
I
awesome.
often refer to him as the ever ubiquitous Father Paul. So yeah, that's great.
Nice.
You're gonna like him. I think really highly of him. So
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I think that'll be an awesome stream. I'm definitely super excited to have him on the show and get to speak with him. So that is a blessing and a privilege. Absolutely. And then the fourth, somebody that you know, Father Andrew Damick is going to be on the show. So
right on. That's great.
So that'll be an interesting week for a live stream. So
Yeah.
all right. Well, thank you all so much for watching. I'm going to hop over into Mario stream. This is going to redirect right into that. So if you want to check that out, again, not educational, just kind of a chill stream. We're hanging out, watching a video. So if you want to check that out, stay on. And if you don't, have a good night and God bless.
Thanks, everyone. God bless you.